Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Sing, choirs of angels, sing in exaltation. Oh, sing, all ye citizens of heaven above. Glory to God, glory in the highest.
Come, let us adore. Oh, come, let us adore.
Come, let us adore him. Oh, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. We'll praise his name forever. We'll praise his name forever. Christ the Lord. Yes, you are, Jesus. Christ the Lord.
Putting the first astronaut on the moon, asking someone out on a date for the very first time, playing an intricate Bach concerto, and the birth of Jesus. What do all of these things have in common? One word: timing. I'm sure that the first three may make sense, but when it comes to the birth of Jesus, how does timing fit in? In the New Testament, one of Jesus' disciples, Luke, tells us about the birth of Jesus. He writes this: while they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn son. This year, for Christmas, we are focusing on the perfect timing of Christ's birth. Now, it may seem insignificant as you read the story, but did you ever stop to think, why did Jesus enter into the world when he did? Why didn't God choose an earlier time, or why not even 500 years from right now? Why that time in history almost 2,000 years ago? Believe it or not, in Bethlehem, on a very particular silent night, it was the perfect time. And not only was Jesus born at the right time, but he encountered a culture and a people at just the perfect time. And we believe he's still doing that to this very day, ordering the moments in our own lives with precise timing and extraordinary love. Come and join us this year for Christmas. And don't come alone. Invite anyone you can think of, family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, as we celebrate together the perfect timing of the very first Christmas.
So, good morning, everyone. Grateful you're here. Just opening up with Lachelle singing like that, is that not unbelievable? I just went backstage afterwards, and I'm like, Lachelle, you need to work on your diaphragm, a little bit more power, unbelievable. But we are excited about this Christmas. We're excited about this service. Can you believe that we're only a week away? And so we are going, you're clapping about that? Okay, that's you, Scotty. I knew you would, because you've already got your shopping done, I'm sure. But well, we're excited. We have 43 services across all of our campuses. 11 of them are here. We've already, even for this campus, given away almost 10,000 tickets. It's amazing because they cost $360. So, no, they're free. But boy, we would love you to go and get tickets. There's still some left, and we ticket just so that we know who's in what service, and so everyone has a seat. But we love you to be there. And I think the topic is really interesting. The whole idea of why would Jesus enter in the particular time? And we know that God is entering lives. And in fact, today we're going to tell stories about that God enters into a particular time. And when he does, he makes a really unique way, not only for individuals, but communities. So please go out, invite, and let's pack this place and have a good time. Next week, we are not going to have Saturday service. So if you're a Saturday service person, we're not going to have services next Saturday. And the Saturday after that for New Year's, we're not going to have Saturday service. So we're going to take 2 Saturdays off. So just be aware of that as well. But please go online, get your tickets, and then we'll be back here next Sunday. And also, when you came in, you should have got one of those beautiful booklets, year-end Christmas gift booklets. That's one of the things that we love about this time of the year, that we can all partner together, even our resources. So we want you to look through that. If you're brand new here, it's a great thing to have and take home and look. You'll find our heart in that book. But we're going to talk about that more at the end of the service after an incredible story. Andrew's going to lead us in this last week of this service called, this series called Brave. And today's going to talk about what does it cost to follow Jesus. Because there is a cost when you step out and you follow faith in Christ. But on the other end of that cost and that risk, there is something just so extraordinary, beautiful. And Andrew's doing a great job leading us in that thought. So before we move into that, I'd love to invite you and just greet someone next to you.
This song, So Will I, is one that some of you all may know. But I was just thinking about this song before we came out. And it kind of reminded me of when I was a kid. I remember one of my closest friends would always just on the drop of a dime be ready to go and do something. And I would always be the one saying, oh, hold on, wait up for me. Don't forget about me. Wait for me. And in some ways, this song really just says, if creation is going to go and shout your praises and sing of your glory, then I want to be a part of that too. I don't want to be the person saying, wait for me to catch up. I want to be the person that says, if creation's going to sing your praises, so will I. If creation's going to follow after every word that comes from your voice, so will I. So I invite you to sing this out if you feel led to sing this as well. If you want to just wash over you, you can do that as well. God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of life. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets born. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you've made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I. So will I. God of your promise. God of your promise. Don't speak in vain, no syllable empty your voice. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. If it all reveals your nature, so will I can see your heart in everything you say. Sky, a canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you, so will I. Yeah, so will I. So if the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. salvation. You chased down my heart through all of my failures and pride. On a hill you created, light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. You left the grave behind you, so will I. I can see your heart and everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. You gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart a billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind. No, you're the one who never leaves the one behind. You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
And that's a perfect song for the journey that we're on today, because it reminds us of all the incredible things that God has done for us, and that He's the one who created the universe. And as we're going to be celebrating next weekend, He's the one who gave us His Son who entered into human history and would ultimately change the course of history. And so as we heard in the song, the natural response for us and to join all of creation and to say, so will I, that because God paid the ultimate price, that no matter what it costs us to follow Him, so will I. We will follow you. That's what the song is all about. And this is what we're going to be talking about as we're in the final week of our series, Brave. And 2 weeks ago, when we kicked off the series, we talked about nudges, these impressions, these promptings that we get from God, and how when God gives us a nudge, we have to have the courage to budge. Because when we do, great things will come about. And then last weekend, we had the privilege of having Kaleo with us and having our children lead us in such a powerful and beautiful way. And Danny talked about red scarf moments, these moments that we've all experienced, or so many of us have experienced in our lives, when we encounter God in an amazing way, and it changes the way that we see the world. And it goes from being in black and white to now being in color. And today, as we conclude the series, we're going to be talking about the cost of following Jesus, because there is a price to pay. And this past week, I was reminded of something that happened a number of years ago. And it was the very first time that I met my wife, Robin. And the very first time we met at the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, one of the most romantic places on the face of this earth. And we were both working for a humanitarian organization called Mercy Ships. And that evening actually, we had a very brief conversation, and then we went our separate ways. But years later, Robin told me that when we first met, she walked away being pretty impressed with what she saw and experienced. Because honestly, wouldn't you be, right? I know that was your first impression of me, right? And so over the next several months, we started really slowly getting to know each other. And I started developing an interest. But you have to understand, this was Robin. And Robin was someone who was so well respected, so well liked by almost everyone in our organization. And I think we were in our early to mid 20s, but even at that point in her life, she had had all these amazing experiences in all these different places around the world, places that I'd never even heard of, let alone been to. And so I was a little bit intimidated by her. And what made things even worse was that I was deathly afraid of women who I found attractive. I know, guys, I am not the only one. And so when I would be in her vicinity, not even talking to her, but even close to her, I wouldn't be able to form coherent thoughts, let alone sentences, and ridiculous things would just come out of my mouth because I was so nervous. Exactly, you know how I'm feeling. And so one morning, I woke up and I said to myself, am I speaking about your situation right here? Awesome, your situation right here. So you know firsthand, you can sympathize. And so I remember one morning, I got up and I said to myself, you know what? Today is the day. It's time to do something about this. It's now or never. So I went into the bathroom to get ready and I looked at myself in the mirror and I gave myself a pep talk. And I said, Andrew, today is the day that you put your big boy pants on. And then I got into my car and I cranked up Eye of the Tiger, put it on repeat, listened to it all the way to work. And that morning, later that morning, I gathered up every ounce of courage I had in my body and I went up to Robin and I swept her off her feet by saying to her, Robin, do you want to have lunch today? It was exactly like that. Every woman's dream. And her response, and I guess for some reason, the message wasn't communicated clearly enough because her response to me was, who else is coming? Which made it even more awkward. But luckily for me, Robin's a very, very intelligent person, so she was able to read between the lines. And thankfully, she's also a very kind and compassionate person because she said yes. And Robin is the only woman I've ever asked out in my life, if you could even call it that. And the reason being, I was scared to death of being rejected. The cost was simply too high until I met her. And when I met her, I found someone who was worth the risk, who was worth the cost. And for every single one of us, we've experienced moments in our life when we were in these situations where the stakes were incredibly high and we had to make a very important decision. A decision either to press in and to move forward or to walk away. It may have been in our career where we were working so hard and we wanted that promotion so badly, and one day our boss finally came to us and said, you know what, you can have that promotion, except you have to move to Tokyo. Or maybe it was when your boyfriend proposed. Or it was when you had to make a very important decision, whether to walk away from a stable, well-paying job in order to start the business of your dreams. We've all experienced those moments, and in those moments, many times, fear dictates our decision because as human beings, we have a natural tendency, we have a bias towards what is safe, what is secure, what is certain. And it's similar in terms of our relationship with Jesus, in that we're willing to follow him. We're willing to move out, we're willing to say yes, as long as it's relatively easy, as long as it doesn't cost us too much in terms of our finances, our time, our comfort, our convenience, our security, our careers, whatever it may be. We've all experienced that. But when the stakes go up, we have a very, very important decision to make. We have to choose, we have to decide what price we're willing to pay to follow Jesus. We have to answer this question: is he worth it? And our answer to that question will determine the power and the beauty of Jesus, the amount of the power and beauty in Jesus, and the nature of that power and beauty that we get to experience in our lives. And today we're gonna be looking at a great story of a man in the New Testament book of Acts, and his name was Stephen. And he found himself at a crossroads, and he had to answer that question: is he worth it? And his answer to that question, not only, what we're gonna see is it not only had a huge impact on his life, but also the impact on so many others' lives throughout history, including, I believe, yours and mine. But before we jump into that, I'm actually gonna invite the ushers to come forward. So ushers, if you wanna come forward to receive our offering for today. And if you are a guest with us, first of all, let me say, welcome. You picked a great weekend to be here. Every weekend is a great weekend, and this is no different. And so really glad that you all are here, but please don't feel any obligation to give. But if you would like to give, we have 4 different ways actually that you can do so. The offering bags will be coming around, so that is one way. And also we have several online options. You can give via our website or our app as well, or you can text the word Kensington to 77977 as well. And all these are fast, efficient, secure ways to give. And if you are a guest with us, we'd love to meet you. So afterwards, if you have a moment, we'd love for you to stop by something that we call the Hub out in the lobby, and you'll see people out there. They have bright orange shirts on, and we'd love to answer questions, any questions that you may have about our community, and also meet you and connect with you and get to know you a little bit. But when we look at this book of Acts, what we see is that we're introduced to the church, the early church back in the first century AD, and what we see is that amazing things were happening. In that every single day, more and more people were saying yes to Jesus and joining this movement. So the early church was growing like crazy. And so the people who were leading it were Jesus' disciples. And so as you can imagine, they're leading thousands upon thousands of people. So the workload just became too much, overwhelming. They were teaching them about what it meant to follow Jesus, trying to take care of the needs of the people in this community. And so they came to a point where they recognized, we need help. And so they decided to choose 7 people who they called deacons. And the primary job of these deacons was to meet and to serve the people, to meet the needs and to serve the people within this community. And these deacons needed to have 3 qualifications, 3 characteristics. They needed to have a great reputation within the community. They needed to have incredible wisdom, and they also needed to be led by the Holy Spirit. And so they found 7 people who fit this description, and one of them was a man by the name of Stephen. And this is what Luke, who wrote the book of Acts, tells us about Stephen. Now Stephen, a man full of God's grace and power, performed great wonders and signs among the people. And so right off the bat, we know Stephen was a powerful, powerful man. And he's going around, he's performing all these incredible miracles. And I can imagine that some of the things that he did was that he healed people of terrible diseases, and that he cast evil spirits out of people. Maybe even did some fun stuff like turning water into wine, maybe some rocks into sushi, who knows? But all of these things, they were all unmistakable signs that God was working amongst his people. But what ended up happening was that, similar to what happened to Jesus, that some of the Jewish people, they saw what was going on. They saw Stephen, all the attention that was coming to him and ultimately to Jesus. And they started getting upset. They started getting jealous. And it says that opposition arose, however, from members of the synagogue of the freedmen, as it was called, Jews of Cyrene and Alexandria, as well as the provinces of Cilicia and Asia. And it's likely that all these people were from one synagogue. And so this synagogue was very, very diverse. It had people from all over the world, as well as people from all different socioeconomic classes. And these people, they began to argue with Stephen, but they could not stand up against the wisdom the Spirit gave him as he spoke. So Stephen was probably telling these people about Jesus, about who he is, why he had come, and ultimately what he had done. And this sparked a debate. But Stephen, as we read, he had such incredible wisdom given to him by the Holy Spirit that he was able to answer every single one of their questions, which made them even angrier, because now he was making them look bad. And so these Jews had Stephen arrested and dragged before the Sanhedrin. And the Sanhedrin was the supreme court of Israel. There was no higher court other than this. And it was made up of 71 people, including the high priest. And the high priest at the time was a guy by the name of Caiaphas. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because he was the guy who basically led the charge in having Jesus crucified and killed. And he's the guy who's in charge of the whole court. And Stephen is in the middle of it. So imagine being this guy. He's in an incredibly hostile environment where the guy who's in charge of it, he's the one who was instrumental in killing Jesus, and he knows you're a Jesus follower. It is not a good place to be a Jesus follower right there. And not to mention, the opposition were bringing in witnesses who were basically lying on the stand and saying that Stephen had done and said all these horrible things. And everyone knew they were lying, but no one was doing anything about it. So Stephen's in the middle of a high stakes, high drama, high intensity courtroom situation. You can think it's sort of like Few Good Men, Lincoln Lawyer, that kind of stuff. Smack dab in the middle. And the Sanhedrin had a lot of power. They had the power to punish Stephen, levy any type of punishment on him short of death. Meaning they could have had him beaten within an inch of his life. They could have thrown him in prison, made life miserable for he and his family. So if there was ever a time for Stephen to backpedal, if there was ever a time for Stephen to reconsider his relationship with Jesus, if there was ever a time for him to say, Jesus who? This would have been that time. And Stephen found himself at a crossroads when the high priest asked him a very important question. Are these charges true? In that moment, he had to answer the question, is he worth it? Is he worth it? And he had to decide, am I gonna press in and move forward? Because who knows what's gonna happen if I do? Or am I gonna walk away? And several years ago, I was listening to a sermon by a man named Eugene Cho. And he is a pastor, he is an author, he's also the founder and leader of an organization called One Day's Wages. And on a trip to Myanmar, he was on a trip to Myanmar and he saw firsthand the poverty that was present in that nation. And on that trip, a dream was birthed within him. A dream to begin a movement, a dream to begin an organization to ask people to give at least 1 day's wages every single year to help fight extreme poverty all around the world. And as he and his family were dreaming and thinking about what this organization should be, he said that they felt convicted to give not just 1 day's wages, but 1 year's wages to help fight poverty. And so that's what they did. They had to prepare for it for 3 years. They had to save, they had to simplify, they had to sell the things that they didn't need. But after that, they gave away 1 year's salary. And towards the end of the message, I'll never forget what he said. And he said that all of us, we love the idea of justice. Because we do. We all love the idea of justice. We all love the idea of kindness and compassion and mercy. Does anyone not? And of course, no one would put up their hand because we'd all look at you thinking you're a terrible human being. And so we all love it. But do we love it enough when we discover there is a cost, there is a price to pay? And he said many times when people realize the cost, the price that they have to pay, they often walk away. And so the question that he asked was, do we love it enough in order to commit, in order to sacrifice our comfort, our convenience, and even our bottom line? And I was thinking about this past week in terms of our relationship with Jesus because I feel like it applies just as well. Because for many of us, we love the idea of following Jesus because honestly, there are a lot of benefits to following Jesus if we're honest. But do we love it enough? Do we love him enough that when we realize that there is a cost, that there is a price to pay, that we say, you know what? I'm gonna dig in and I'm gonna continue to move forward. Do we love him enough that we're willing to commit, that we're willing to sacrifice our comfort, our convenience, and even our bottom line? Because what is so important for us to understand is that following Jesus is costly. There is a price to pay. If we continue down that road towards Jesus and following him in the way that he wants us to live, in the way that he wants us to go, that we will find that it is costly. And the reason is, and Dr. Martin Luther King said it so well, he said that nothing worthwhile is gained without sacrifice. Nothing worthwhile in this world is gained without sacrifice. And you and I both know this. Nothing is free in this world. And so if we want something of value, we have to give something up. There has to be an exchange that takes place. And when we say yes to following Jesus, we enter into the most extraordinary relationship that we will ever experience in our lives. That's why it costs. That's why there is a price to pay. And this is what Jesus told a crowd of people who were following him in the Gospel of Luke. And he told them, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way. You must take up your cross daily, every single day, and you have to follow me. What Jesus was saying is that if you want to be my follower, my ways have to become your ways. My worldview has to become your worldview. My value system has to become your value system. My heart, my passion must become your heart and your passion. Because when we follow Jesus, he tells us to do crazy things. He says, you know, the money, the time, the resources that you have, I want you to use them in a totally different way. First of all, I want you to view them in a totally different way and recognize they're not even yours anyways. They're what I have given you. And so just as you have been freely given these things, freely give them away. And he also tells us to do other crazy things, to not worry and to trust him. He also tells us that I want you to love people. And not just the people who look like you, who talk like you, who are in your neighborhood, same socioeconomic class. I want you to love everyone, even those people who are annoying, even those people who hate you. And that is a hard, hard thing to do. That is not natural. That's not what our world tells us to do. There's a cost, there is a price. And when we recognize there is a cost, the question that we have to ask, just with anything else in our lives, it could be in our career, it could be in our family, whatever it is, when we come to that crossroads and recognize there is a cost associated with it, we have to ask the question, is it worth it? Is he worth it for me to keep going, or am I gonna walk away? And it's the question that Stephen had to answer, and it's the question that we have to answer as well. Is he worth it for us to pray, even do things like pray in public, and have people look at us and think we're so weird, maybe even judge us? Is he worth it for us to step out when we get that nudge, to step out and invite our neighbor, that coworker, to a Christmas service? Is he worth it when pain and sorrow and heartbreak enter into our lives and we don't understand why that is happening? Is he worth it for us to say, even though I do not understand Jesus, I will continue to follow you? We have to decide what price we are willing to pay to follow him, because following Jesus is costly. And what we see in this story with Stephen is when the stakes were high, he stood the tallest. He's in the middle of this courtroom. Everyone is against him, and he's probably realizing this is not a good situation. What was he gonna do? And what he ended up doing is he gives the longest message that's recorded in the book of Acts, where he reminded the Jewish people who were there of their history, and also reminded them of the fact that they had resisted the Holy Spirit. And he said, and these are fighting words, he says to them, you stiff-necked people, your hearts and ears are still uncircumcised. You are just like your ancestors. You always resist the Holy Spirit. Was there ever a prophet your ancestors did not persecute? They even killed those who predicted the coming of the righteous one. And now you have betrayed and murdered him. You who have received the law that was given through angels, but have not obeyed it. Hard words. And the reason he said this wasn't because he wanted to win. It wasn't because he was trying to be mean or somehow crush them. But he wanted them to hear the truth. He wanted them to understand the truth. He wanted them to embrace the truth. Because he understood that if they did, they would experience what he had experienced. And that they would step into the life that Jesus came to give us. And not just a select group of people, but everyone, including you and me. That's what he wanted for them. And that's why he speaks these words, even though they're hard words. It was truth. But unfortunately for the Jews at that time, they didn't exactly respond in the most positive way. When the members of the Sanhedrin heard this, they were furious and gnashed their teeth at him. But Stephen, full of the Holy Spirit, looked up to heaven and saw the glory of God and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. Look, he said, I see heaven open and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God. At this, they covered their ears, and yelling at the top of their voices, they all rushed at him, dragged him out of the city, and began to stone him. Meanwhile, the witnesses laid their coats at the feet of a young man named Saul. And while they were stoning him, Stephen prayed, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. And then he fell on his knees and cried out, Lord, do not hold this sin against them. And when he had said this, he fell asleep. And so Stephen's decision to stand when the stakes were high cost him his life. But at the same time, what also happened was that his death put in motion some amazing and some very, very important events. Because Stephen's death is what pushed the Jesus followers out of the city of Jerusalem into the rest of the world. And when they went out to the surrounding regions and to other places, they took the good news of Jesus with him. And as a result, people's lives were changed. And Stephen's death was a catalyst to fulfilling Jesus' promise that he gave right before he left this earth and went to heaven. Because he told his followers, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And up to that point in history, they had basically been locked in Jerusalem and just all gathered there. But Stephen's death pushed them out. And it has had a huge impact on history. But at the same time, and we can't know this for sure, but what we did read in the passage was that a man by the name of Saul was present there as well. And this guy would encounter Jesus in an amazing way on the road to the city called Damascus and have his life transformed. And he would have his name later changed to Paul, the Apostle Paul. That's who he was. He's the one who wrote more than half of the New Testament. He is the one who back in the 1st century AD started churches all over the known world. And who knows the impact that listening to Stephen's words and seeing what happened to Stephen, seeing his passion, his love for Jesus did to him. But in that moment, in that courtroom, Stephen answered the question, is he worth it? And he said, yes, he is worth it. Because what Stephen understood was that no matter the cost, Jesus is worth the price. He's worth the price. And for us today, living where we do comparatively, when we look at Stephen's story, our cost of following Jesus is relatively low. But at the same time, there still is a cost. And yesterday I was speaking with a man after our Saturday evening service. And this man is an elderly gentleman, probably in his 80s, and he's been coming to Kensington probably for the last couple of months. And he told me in a previous conversation, he told me that I love this place, he said to me. That every single time I enter into this place, I feel such beauty, I feel such power. I've encountered Jesus here and he has transformed my life. And so naturally, because he's had this incredible experience with Jesus, he wants to share it with the people around him. And so he's gone back to his home and he's gone back to his friends and he's told them about Jesus. And he said, you have to come to Kensington. You have to meet this person who I met named Jesus. And ultimately what has happened, he told me yesterday, is that these people, his friends who he's known for years, just stopped talking to him. And I could hear the pain in his voice. I could see the pain in his eyes. And he said, why would people do that? I just want them to experience the joy that I've experienced. And I said, you know what? And I was just reminded there is a cost. That's sometimes the cost that we have to pay. It could be in terms of relationships. It could be in terms of our career. It could be in terms of comfort or convenience or finances or time or whatever it is. But there is a cost. And this morning I was reading stories of people around the world who have paid a hefty price. People in places like North Korea, Uganda, Afghanistan. People who have been imprisoned, people who have been beaten, some people who have even been killed. They understand this cost as well. People are paying the price around the world. And we're gonna watch a video of an incredible story of one of our global partners in Brazil. And one of our partner churches there is led by a man named Guilherme. And they are working in one of the most difficult places on this planet. But yet God, through this community, is transforming lives. It's such a beautiful story. And what we're gonna see is that when they started this community, there was a cost. There continues to be a cost today, but what he and his team understand is that no matter the cost, Jesus is worth the price. Let's take a look.
Favela is a really hard place to live. It's where the most poor people live. This place is commanded by the drug dealers, the traffic, the cartel, and there is so much stuff that happens in the favela, you won't believe it. There is some kids with 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. They sell drugs inside of the favelas. Some of them will have a dream to become a drug dealer because for them, to become a drug dealer is have power, is have success.
Avião, se chama aviãozinho, né? É de buscar, de levar, de mandar recado. Eu acho que começa muito de cedo, assim, começa pelo aliciamento, né? Tem muitos que gostam muito de aliciar as meninas. Então as meninas de pequenas já são mais aliciadas, começam mais por biscoito, em troca. Então elas são deixadas ser tocadas de uma forma má.
The favela is an extreme danger place. You cannot mess with the cartel, with the drug dealers. Even the police, they have to be authorized to go inside the favela. And for instance, some people, if you're stealing something in the favela, you're probably gonna have in trouble. There is this guy that they break his hand. He's almost died because he's stealing something from inside the favela. Favela is a really like hard place to live. I would say 50% of this house, if you can call that house, they don't have even like a toilet, like a bathroom. They don't have water. It's just a place for them to sleep.
O menininho e alto. Só que aquela cama ali tá ocupada.
For example, we met this woman, Josanette, and she's been raising 6 grandchildren in a really, really small house, just by herself, because one of her daughters was killed by the cartel, and the other one is in jail. We have so much. These people doesn't even have like a place to sleep or a bathroom, like a toilet. I'm so blessed when I just got to this place and see this reality. It just make me think like we have to do some stuff. We can do some stuff, you know? We opened our church in our old warehouse. In our church, looks like some churches in America. We have music, we have kids program, we have a coffee shop, we have teaching. The location of our church was really important. The main idea was to make a bridge for help the people on the favelas. So we located our church next to the favela. Everyone was like, hey, don't go there, man. It's like a really hard issue, some like a trouble with the guys, with drug dealers. And that was actually, God was telling us, hey, this is the place you have to be. This is the mission of our church. This is why we call the bridge, to build a bridge so that people can find Jesus through our good works. One of the things that we do in our church, if you want to become a member, you're probably gonna ask you where you wanna help us. Otherwise, for us, it's not reason to become a member. The people were so involved with the service that we have a really small staff. We have a saying around here called Somos a Ponte. That means we are the bridge. The main idea is like the church to understand, the church is not about like a pastor or some leaders, but everybody has to understand that we are the church of Jesus Christ. One of the ways that we decided to help people was to start some social projects inside of our building. For example, we built this dentist clinic, and we asked the church if we could find some dentists, and we have about like 50 dentists. They give like 1 hour, 2 hours per week, so they can help some people.
Nada mais justo do que eu usar algo que eu já faço no meu dia a dia para ajudar quem precisa.
We also have the class to help people with special needs, where children can come here and learn and have some fun.
Isa, meu Deus, chega batendo.
We have classes to help some kids to get a better education.
I'm going to law school in the Federal University of Pernambuco.
You're gonna be a lawyer.
Yeah, I want to be a lawyer.
We also have this program called Precious Plastic. We asked the church to bring some stuff they actually didn't use anymore, and we transform that. That way, some people can make some money, and we can create some jobs for our people in the favelas. God has been used this church to have a great impact in the favela. Even the cartel, the drug dealer, they have much respect for our church.
Então essa igreja, ela é fundamental para a comunidade aqui, porque então a igreja é essencial aqui pra gente. Oxente, muito grato mesmo.
One of my favorite programs is help some young people to become a first responders. There is a guy called Caesar. I met him about like 2 years ago, and I can tell you, the program changed his life.
Queria as coisas, não tinha, meus amigos tinham. Aí foi quando eu descobri como é que eles arrumavam dinheiro e tal. Aí fui olhando e também eu entrei, comecei a fazer também. Horrível, a experiência foi horrível, porque é uma pequena parte do inferno lá dentro, né? Apesar que só tinha... Foi maravilhoso, porque eu tive a oportunidade de ser alguém na vida.
We also have this program called Imagine. The main idea of this program is help some people to dream about a better life. We We have jiu-jitsu to help some boys to learn some martial arts. We have the ballet that helps some girls from the favelas learn how to dance.
Elas, assim, se enxergarem no espelho, olhar o próprio corpo, aceitar que a sua forma física é diferente, que todo mundo é diferente. Historicamente falando, o balé é algo de rico, que as meninas da favela elas não têm acesso.
Remember earlier I told you about this lady called Josanette. She takes care about 6 grandchildren, and one of them is taking class from our ballet. Helene has such a beautiful smile, and now she has big dreams.
Foi através da minha mãe, porque ela era bailarina, e aí eu peguei, ela faleceu, infelizmente, né? Uma doença, aí eu peguei e falei, é meu sonho. Ai, uma bailarina, sei lá, uma bailarina, continuar sendo bailarina, porque eu gosto.
After I met Irlani and her grandmom, I was like deeply touched. And I posted a video on Instagram.
Gente, tô aqui com a irmã tremendo. Cabelo em pé.
2 hours after I posted this video on Instagram, so many people just started talking to me. We already have like 6 beds, a new refrigerator, a new ceiling. I'm like, basically, we're gonna just remodel the whole house. When I was a boy, just like every Brazilian boy, I would love a dream to become a soccer player. But God has another plans for my life, and I became a pastor. And I am the happiest person on the whole planet. I can tell you that. One of the things that makes my heart like so happy is to understand that we are working for something that is eternal. Every time I go to the favela, I understand what Jesus said, that it's better give than receive. This is what we want to be as a church. We want to change the reality because we know that we can. We have to be these people that actually cry with them. We have to be these people that are actually gonna have to do something for them because sometimes they don't have any voice, they don't have rights, they don't have dreams. The church is the church when actually people can see Jesus through us. We are the hands, the feet of Jesus to bring light where it's really, really dark. We want to spread the gospel. We want to be the bridge. We want to make a path. We want to help people to find the way to God.
As I watch this story, I just got to tell you, any hopelessness or cynicism that I might have in my life, it just evaporated. Seeing what Jesus Christ can do in situations that we say are hopeless. Guillermo and his team in Recife are working in one of the hardest spots on planet Earth. And yet in the midst of that is the joy of Jesus Christ and the transformation of people's lives. I just want you to know something. When you make a year-end gift to Kensington, you are affecting lives all over the planet. From Metro Detroit to almost every corner of the earth. And what a privilege it is to be able to do that. I am so glad that God has let me live and journey this road with you to see these lives transform. And as we come to Christmas, I just got to ask you, what better Christmas present will you ever get than the story that you just saw of what God is doing in one place? This is what Christmas is all about. This is Jesus Christ alive. This is Jesus coming into communities, being born in mangers and making people alive and bringing hope and healing. And so I really want to encourage you to make a year-end gift to Kensington this Christmas. I want you to join with me, because I'm going to do it too, to launch us into another year where we get to live this privilege of seeing Jesus Christ work through imperfect people like us to touch the world with his love. What could be better than that this Christmas?
Boy, isn't that story amazing? I've had the privilege to go to Brazil a few years ago and be able to walk the path of Ricardo Gracie is our partner there, and he was part of training Guilherme, and boy, I tell you, I've been able to meet Guilherme, and I believe they've even been here. I know Ricardo has, I believe, Guilherme as well, and it's just a dynamic, incredible leader that has been, he had a dream to become a soccer player, and God had a different dream to become the happiest pastor on the planet. I think he actually is, and he is because he knows what it means when Jesus enters the life in a community. He really sees it. And not only that, but he's courageous to step into it. And boy, it's just incredible to watch people around the world and here do that. If you were here last week, what's so fascinating is the story we told last week about the single mom with her children and having a community come around very close to here, not far from here, is very similar to that story of that woman caring for all those kids in Brazil. Isn't that amazing that when God moves, he moves and he brings a new way? When God moves and reveals himself to a person or community, he starts to make a different way, a different path. And that's really what we are so passionate. I actually love this particular time watching the video. What stuck out to me is the idea that Guilherme has something called Imagine. And he's trying to get people to see a different way of life. How can you imagine a different way of life? And when Jesus comes in, he really does give us a new way, a new imagination to see the world and people and ourselves so differently. And so that's what we're really, really passionate about here at Kensington. That's our heart. I believe exactly what Steve says. When we get to this time of the year, we have the privilege to be able to come together as a community and share our time and our resources together to impact the world that way. So when you came in, you did get this beautiful booklet. I would love, if you're brand new here today, I would love you to just take it home, look it over, pray over it, and within these pages, you're going to see our heart. I hope you know that our mission statement is to see everyone transformed and mobilized by Jesus. So we not only are here in this region and around the country, but around the world with our 10 global partners, Brazil being one of them. And so we really do have a vision to be part of seeing Jesus change the world. So I would love for you to take this out if you have it in your hand and just kind of glance through it. This is a time where we can partner together financially. And as you go through the pages, you're going to see all kinds of things. One of them is just stories of people. There's 3 of them in here. Stories right of people in our community. Melissa shared her story not long ago, and it's awesome. You do get to see some of our global partners. Nepal being my personal heart, where we're pushing against human trafficking there. I'm going back there in March. So really, and here's the other thing. Last night we were at our service here, and sitting right about where you are in the red sweater there was a woman, Jill, and I hadn't seen Jill in a while. And it's a single woman in our community. She got moved by Jesus. She was working in the prison systems here, and she decided that she was going to go across the world in another region and start to fight human trafficking alone. And she goes there about a month at a time. And I talked to her last night after service, and I'm like, tell me your stories and what God is doing in this region through this one person is changing the landscape of that community. That's how God works, just moving and pushing people out in the world. So we'd love you to partner with that. At the very end of this whole booklet, it'll give you ways that you can partner. We'd like you to pray about that as we move into the season. Well, we're going to end with a musical exclamation point on everything that Andrew led us through, and then also through the video. And we're going to sing a song called Waymaker. And I love this tune. I love how Alina leads this tune because she's so, I know enough about Alina to know that she believes that God is the one that makes the way. And she is leading us through that in a very authentic way. So we're going to ask all of you that are able to stand, and we'd like to sing this out. If you'd like to sit and process this, that's fine as well. But let's sing this out as an act of worship together.
darkness, my God, that is who you are. A way maker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. 'Cause you are here, you're turning lives around. I worship you, oh, I worship you. 'Cause you are here, you're mending broken hearts. I worship you, oh Jesus, I worship you. Come on, everybody, if we can say it in one big voice. Waymaker, yeah. Miracle worker. Come on, say he's a promise keeper. He's a light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Jesus, I know you to be a waymaker, waymaker. With all of my heart I say, I'm not ashamed to say, oh, you are. My God, yeah. That is who you are. know there's plenty of testimonies in this sanctuary. I worship you. I worship you. You are here. Every single broken piece, every broken heart. I worship you. I worship you. Who wouldn't serve a God like that? That loves you. Who wouldn't serve a God like that? That cares about you. My God, that is who you are.
What a great way to end our day and to end this service and the journey that we've been on. Hey, I want to remind all of us that we are going to be celebrating next weekend the fact that God made a new way and celebrating Christmas. And so we'd love for you to join us, bring somebody with you, and you can get free tickets via our app or our website as well. And just a quick reminder that for the next 2 Saturdays, we will not be having services on those days, on Saturdays. And also anyone who would like to receive prayer, somebody to pray with them, our prayer team will also be down front. But thanks so much for being here, everyone. Have a great rest of your weekend.